This episode is sponsored by National Technology Management. Visit trustntm.com for more information. I'm Kelly Siegel, and this is Harder Than Life, a podcast about self-love, self-awareness, business, and health. We tell outrageous stories and boil everything down to simple, practical advice you can start using today. Let's get living. Welcome, listeners, to another exciting episode of the Harder Than Life podcast, where we explore the journeys of extraordinary individuals who have mastered the art of turning life's challenges into opportunities for growth and success. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming true visionary in the realm of real estate investment and personal finance. He's not just an author, entrepreneur, and mentor, but a beacon of positivity and inspiration for countless individuals striving to achieve financial freedom and live life on their own terms. His book, aptly titled The Time Machine, isn't just about building wealth. It's a guide to unlocking the boundless potential of our future. So buckle up, get ready to embark on an exhilarating journey through the corridors of time and wealth creation with the one and only Kris Krohn.
Kelly, what's up, brother, man? Good to be here with you today.
Buddy, listen, I went through the whole podcast prep and I didn't say anything about your beautiful family. So I want to say love and kudos and all superlatives to your beautiful wife, Colleen, and your family. And tell everybody I said hi and I love them and I miss them. I'll see them very soon. And we're going to get kicked off right away with what's your story and why does your story matter?
I appreciate it. Look, I think everyone has a story that matters, right? Like we're at different places in our own journeys. I'm fortunate that I've already had my midlife crisis, my burn down, my rebuild, my redo, then my do-over, which makes for a great story, right? Those quote unquote bad days. I love that song by RJ that says 100 bad days make 100 good stories. And I actually really don't believe in bad days. I love the level of challenge that I've been able to face in my life that has brought me to where I am. You know, my life starts with, young adulthood, wanting to be a doctor. I'm like, okay, I felt God tap me on the shoulders and say, your parents, Kris, that's your financial responsibility. You have your own family. So make sure you pick a career where you can take care of two families. And I had told myself since I was a teenager growing up, I'm going to be a doctor. And when I started taking pre-med, it kicked my ass so hard. And after taking organic chemistry the second time and getting a worse grade the second go around, I gave up on that dream. But that also meant that, wait a second, I'm in college. I'm looking at every possible major. Nothing pays as much as it pays a doctor. So whatever I'm looking for can't be found here. And at that exact same time, I had this crappy telemarketing job, just depressing work, calling people that don't want to be talked to, treating me like a telemarketer. And, I got fed up. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor, and I really felt out of it one day after work, like just depressed, and went home to just see if I could grab a quick early lunch with my wife that I never saw. We had only been married for 4 months. And so here I am, a full-time student. I've got a full-time job, and I just have no idea what my future is going to be. When I came home, I found her just in shambles. When I walked into our tiny little 400 square foot basement apartment, I found her, Kelly, with tears streaming down her cheeks and dried tears. So she had been crying a long time. And I finally I thought someone had died. It was like I'd never seen her this way before. And when I asked her, I said, "What's up?" She says, "Kris, we got tuition due in 3 weeks." And I'm like, "That's weird. Why are you crying over that? Like we can take out student loans, right?" She said, "Kris, we have rent due in a week. We already spent our next paycheck." And I thought, "Oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to kick us out?" And then she said, "Kris, I went grocery shopping and I bought our typical week's worth of groceries, and it only came to like $28, and the check bounced. And I left the store in humiliation." So I came home to having what felt like a bad life and a bad day and a bad everything, to a wife that was just wrecked. And in that moment, brother, I tore myself up. I said, I'm an awful provider. I've let my wife down. I've let my best friend down. And I felt very small as a man, but a different decision also got made that day. And this is really the story. I decided that I would do whatever it took to never be in that situation again. And 5 years later, I was financially free, just graduated college, never had to set foot in a corporate anything, that didn't need to get a job. And I was literally free to do whatever I wanted the rest of my life, and brought the security to my wife and to my parents that I always wanted.
As I said, buckle up in the intro. Here we go. Every time I sit and talk with you, I get amazed, I learn, and I connect even closer to you. In your bio, it says you have a bachelor's degree in marriage, family, and human development, and an honorary MBA.
Yeah,
is that a real?
That's real. Yeah. So listen, so this is kind of strange. I never saw my wife because I was a full-time student and I also had a full-time job and I was building my business full-time on the side. So it was a crazy schedule. And I'm like, okay, if I don't get a degree, my mother-in-law is going to kill me. She has reminded me. So I'm like, I'm just going to hop on with my wife's degree and then we can take classes together. It was literally how we spent time together. And I knew that the degree would give me easy A's in case I wanted to get an MBA. And then I got to see my wife a bunch. And to be honest, it's a little bit of a shameful degree for a male because it was kind of a chick major. Don't take that the wrong way, but it was like marriage, family, human development, family counseling, which is a beautiful thing, but it wasn't my thing. And then strange thing happened is I took that degree so I could get great grades and took all of my pre-classes for business school. And when I took stats, something weird happened. Instead of it being a weeder class like organic chemistry, I smoked everybody. I had 200 kids in the class and they graded the entire curve on me. And I discovered that I had this passion for math, which was very important for who I became in business later. Never got an MBA. Years later, I got an honorary MBA for speaking at the university and sharing a bit of my story. So yeah, I really self-educated more than anything.
Well, you saying that you and you're being a chick, for those of you who don't know, this guy's a mammoth of a man. It's very hard to make me look small, and standing next to you, I am small in stature. So what are you, 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4", 250.
6'4", 250. Yeah, boy. So there's nothing chick about you. Guys, if you're not following Kris, he's Kris Krohn with K. Both Ks, Kris. Krohn at all handles, man. This guy, his social media is fire. Make sure you give him a follow. And we're going to deep dive again. If you don't have his book, then his latest greatest time machine. It is. Look at that. By the way, look at how pretty that picture is. This book is the nicest book I've ever seen. I put it next to my book, and I'm like, of course, it's like standing next to you. So,
come on, Kel.
I referred to the book. It's about leveraging time to build wealth through investments in real estate or other assets. What inspired you to write the book, and why did you choose the title, The Time Machine?
Yeah. So I actually, some of the other books that I've written, one of my most popular books, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth, is a playbook on how anyone with no money can become a multimillionaire. And then later I wrote, a couple years ago, I had a book come out, Have It All. And that book is about 5 ROIs that can help anyone become as wealthy as they want. It's a game on diversification on ROI, where it's, most people put their money in 401ks and IRAs and really dumb single digit returns. And if you can get to real estate at double digits or business at triple or quadruple digits, you can be set for life. When I wrote this last book, Time Machine, it's really a book about decision making. And I believe that the summation of our entire life comes down to yeses and nos. 2 magic words, yes and no. And often in life, we're saying yes to things we're supposed to say no to. And then on the other spectrum, we've got things that we're saying no to that we're supposed to say yes to. And it's kind of like, the book is a little bit like, imagine that you died, you got on the other side, and there was a library dedicated to your multiverse, all the lives that you could have lived. And on the far left side of the library, when you go in, it shows you giving the wrong answer at every step of your life and how your life turns out. And of course, it's a train wreck. But on the other side of the library, it has a version of your life where you always said yes or no to all the right things. And how could you not be the world's wealthiest, richest, most peaceful, most loving, most kind, most generous human being if we just had the hindsight of yeses and nos? And so when I wrote the book, I said, the problem with arriving at the right decision is we don't have hindsight. We won't get it till later. And so most people, they default decision-making on logic or money. It's like, does it make sense or what does it cost? But those are actually two very limited views of the world. And so in the book, I augment and share 5 different lenses that I use for making decisions for the things that actually really matter in life, and decided to write a book about it because there's a lot of people that follow me for productivity hacks. And I said, well, listen, if the goal of some of my other books is to make the most money, read those. But if the goal is to live your most fulfilling life, read this book. Time Machine can't take you back in time, but it can 100% alter your future with having the hindsight vision and the system for making the best decisions.
So those of you that don't know, he's big in real estate. So real estate investment can seem daunting to newcomers. What advice would you give to someone who's starting out and wants to use real estate as a means to build wealth? Specifically, when you said it took you 5 years to be financially free. So what can people do?
Yeah. So, I've transacted now over $2 billion worth of single family homes, over 6,500 projects. And I've learned a few things in those first 1,000 transactions, but on the last 5,000, I've learned nothing new. Like, we mastered it, we perfected it. And a lot of people are like, oh, Kris, you're big into real estate. And it's actually not true. It looks like it's true. What I'm really big into is preserving my time by investing in things that are passive enough so that I can use my time with the money I've earned to be free. A lot of people don't really understand what freedom is. If you have all the time in the world and you don't have money, that sucks. And if you have all the money in the world, but you don't have time, that sucks just as much. It's not until you have time and money that you really free yourself. And so, the game of real estate, I don't like most real estate strategies, Kelly. The one that I really resonate with is I buy these single family homes in the top 5 out of 324 markets in the US. I buy them at a certain price point, about 30% below the median. I buy them usually new or near new in the nicest areas of these 5 markets out of 324. And then I rent them for 5 years. And I never touch a deal unless I make 25% a year on my money, but normally we average 34. And so what that means is that I can outpace a 401k or an IRA, 20, 30, 40, 50 times over. And so it just ends up being a really great passive alternative where, yes, I did it in 5 years, but I think a lot of people are like, shoot, as long as I know that I could wake up in 20 years to millions of dollars, I'd follow that path. So it's passive. It takes the least time. It takes the least effort. It makes the most money, provides a valuable service for people. It works in up and down markets. And so I love teaching people that strategy because a lot of people, I started and I built all of my wealth with $3,300. Like, that was a 3% down payment on a tiny little piece of crap bungalow. And then I used the equity in that house to buy my next one. I used the equity in the second one to buy the third one. And then I learned how to buy real estate without never needing money or credit, and kind of became a thing.
Oh, so much to unpack there. I learned. So just so the listeners know, and I'm not trying to insult anyone, but I just don't like to assume anybody understands this. So an average return on a 401k, if you're lucky, is going to be 5%. If you're lucky.
Yeah, the last 20 years, it's averaging 4.2.
Yeah. So I've rounded it even up and gave him a little bit. And if you're at 25, that literally is 20% more on your money, which is good, really good. I would add one more thing that you say, not having time. And then I would add one more, doing what you hate doing day in and day out sucks as well. So what I'm hearing you say over and over is kind of like 10X is easier than 2X.
Yes.
Dan Martell's buy back your time. It's basically, hey man, I'm going to do things creatively that I want to do that make me money. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So it's interesting when entrepreneurship is really where you go if you want a high degree of freedom, right? A W-2 or 1099, it's a stepping stool to, I think, a good life. And if you're really a good penny pincher and then you invest the difference hardcore, you can have a career and actually do well financially. But entrepreneurs have next level opportunities. I think everyone gets that. There's higher risk, there's higher return. And, one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that you get to do all the jobs in the beginning at some point that nobody wants to do. And so I actually love, Kelly, that you brought up this idea that it's not just time and money. One of my 5 lenses in the book, Time Machine, is called joy arbitrage. And basically, every choice has an inherent emotion that you're going to be doing it with. And there's a lot of people that do things that they don't like. And so I always tell people, hey, when whether by saving money or getting your investments to produce a return or by crushing it as an entrepreneur, when you first start making, I'll call it real money, good money, the first thing that you should do is not invest it in an asset that'll grow. The first thing you need to invest it in are people to do all the tasks that you hate doing. Because what will happen is you're going to see your joy quotient go up as you start taking all of the miserable choices, the sad choices, the angry choices, and you start asking other people to do those. And there's most jobs that people don't like doing can be done for under $30 an hour, which means if I were an entrepreneur and I finally cracked the code and was making, call it $300,000 a year, I would peel off $50,000 to $80,000 just like that. Get some VAs, hire a personal assistant, an executive assistant, people to come and clean my house. I would just make a list of all the things that bring me zero joy. And instead of grinning and bearing it, I just have other people do it. And so there's some people are going to say, well, Kris, Kelly, like, isn't that just like a waste of your newfound money? You work so hard for that. I'm like, yeah, but trust me, I would rather have less money and be happier than have more money and be more miserable. And so there's a big part of arbitrage in the book that is really about not just buying your time back, but buying back your peace of mind or your happiness, spending your time doing the things that you love.
Yeah. And believe me, I've spent enough time with you. I know that you do a lot of what you love, and it's rubbed off on me in the short time I've known you. I come every time we spend a weekend with you, I come home and I start evaluating, like, what can I slice out? It's our conversations are fantastic. I want to just clarify something. I'm assuming the top 5 markets in the United States change yearly. What are they?
Probably every 5 to 10 years.
What are they right now?
Yeah. Florida is really hot. It's getting a lot of flack because of rising insurance rates. But my ROIs and my growth is actually strongest. So when we talk about 500,000 people last year leaving New York and 500,000 people leaving California, there's only 2 major markets that they went to. They either went coastal Texas or they went Florida. And so, part of what creates this supply and demand response to the prices rising in real estate correlates to population. And so you either have the birth rates of the people in the space in the market that you're going to buy in, but then you also have migration. And right now, migration is so big into Florida, and they've got huge budgets for infrastructure, spending billions of dollars. And so there's submarkets there in Florida around Orlando that I love to buy in. I've been there now for the last 7-8 years, and that market still continues to perform huge. And then I've got a bunch of other cash flow markets. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm in a market in Alabama, Oklahoma. In these markets, specifically, we've got they're either transportation hubs or we've got large companies moving in that are building multi-billion-dollar factories. Again, what is moving the needle on population? And where does that intersect with affordability? And then there's a lot of other things. It's got to be a red state instead of a blue state, because blue state real estate never performs nearly as well. Just shooting straight. Woke is not good for real estate. I don't know if it's good for anything, but it's definitely not good for real estate.
Ladies and gentlemen, the political portion of Harder Than Life.
Yeah, correct. Yes. And my team's like, Kris, no political comments. I'm like, let's go, Brandon. Listen,
it's the two of us. We're going to talk about everything.
Yeah.
Real quick, I was going to say something. I completely lost my train of thought. So we talked about a couple of lessons. You just blew through a couple of questions that I had. I was going to ask for success stories and things. So let's talk about a valuable lesson that you learned in your own real estate experiences and real estate investing. How it influenced your approach to wealth building? Like, what's the biggest thing that you've learned along the way?
Well, I remember the first time I lost $1 million, and that sucked. This was 2008, 2009. Markets had just collapsed. Fannie Freddie came out with these tapes of real estate that they had to get off their books. So if you understand banking and you understand fractional lending, you can basically go and get on your FDIC insured money from the bank, the government, 100x on the money that you have in deposits. And so people will start banks and like, hey, we're starting with, $1 million. Well, then you're going to get $100 million that you can receive and then lend out on all sorts of activities like home loans and car loans and different things like that. And so, you take a look at that messed up banking world, and what hurts their ratios on what they can lend out on are their bad debts. So I had bought, it was like 186 homes out of Ohio, Wisconsin, and Michigan at like a 92% discount. And I was like, I am going to kill it. This is my $10 million play. I'm going to make all of this money. It's going to be sick. But the market took 5 years to recover. And during that period of time, right after I bought the tape and fixed everything up, I I found that those states that I bought in, the tenants in that socioeconomic status would basically move in. These were typically, low income earners making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. And they would trash the place. And these were in markets where the rules were in favor of the tenants. So they could live for 6 months or 12 months for free before we could actually even boot them out. And when they left, they took everything, like things that are appliances, but also things that are permanent fixtures. Those are cupboards. Like they'll stay with the house. Like they just destroyed these things.
Oh, you're not even doing it any justice, brother, at all, because I'm in Michigan and I guarantee you they took the pipes. The copper pipes out of the wall.
Pipes. Yeah.
So that's Detroit, baby.
Yeah. So it was crazy. A lot of good learning experiences, including losing $1 million. That was painful. But what was really cool is I learned that was my foray into figuring out how to go out of state the right way. And then we started killing it and crushing it. And so I'm grateful for the experience because I think a lot of people, they have this concept in their mind. It's popular. It's called failure. And what that word means is I tried to do something and I didn't get the result that I wanted. And so instead of learning the lesson, I just said that I failed. And that meant that I'm less than and I shouldn't try again and I'm unmotivated. I don't believe in that. Like, how dare anyone aim to achieve something they've never done before and then let God say, I will do it in this period of time, or else my name isn't Kris Krohn. And then of course they get there and they didn't achieve the goal, and then they're hard on themselves. And I'm kind of like, it's kind of stupid and asinine. You've never done it before. What made you think you could have done it? You've got to learn to value the lessons more than the money. And as an entrepreneur, I have failed thousands of times, but for me, it's not failure. It's just learning. And then hence that learning then turns into something really cool, like results, financial trappings, winnings, changing lives, helping people, elevating, all these cool things. So that was an awful experience that taught me so much. And I've leveraged it for my good since.
I put a post up this morning, and this is the first time that you and I are going to freaking veer way off into our weird land that we love to be in. I put a post up this morning. Failure is fun.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? I'm not even going to expound upon it. What did you say if I said that to you?
Because I value lessons more than the outcome I'm trying to produce, it is fun. Like, it's exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, like if we're going to go off left field, let me go a little bit further left. This is divine training. Like, I don't think there's a greater spiritual game on the planet than entrepreneurship. Why? Because you're playing mini God. Like, I want to create something. I'm going to organize a matter, people, opportunities, going to establish leadership and hierarchy. And we're going to figure out how to manage the expenses and the opportunities and the leads that come in and the revenue. And we're going to see if we can build our own little world here. You're going to mess up a whole bunch of times in the process of creating your world. How is that not some of the coolest spiritual training that you've ever experienced? It's like the most practical application of creationism I've ever seen.
Ladies and gentlemen, my brother from another mother just took off right there. The way that you and I think alike is scary. I just threw that biscuit up there and you ran with it. And it is fun because we're both learn-it-alls. I want to learn more, and I know that, and we'll take this a spiritual way where God is breathing into us, and it's our job to learn this and take this message out and share it with the world. So having said that, I want people to understand that they can work with you. So they can partner with you. Talk about that.
Well, before I do, I want to share this. I just got off of a hard call this last hour, and I had my CEO reach out to me after, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "I know, but that call was filled with really bad news. Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Why are you so okay?" I'm like, "Because I promise you that life continues. I promise you we learn from this, and then I promise you we get better. So like why aren't you celebrating? Like, why aren't you just getting jacked excited right now about how good this is?" And it's not really just this hopium mindset of, glass half full, altitude determines, what do they say? Attitude determines altitude, all these like cheap little platitudes. I literally get excited about when things don't go my way because I know that I will learn. And when I do, I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be more competent, more capable. And I believe more divine. Like the part of life is going beyond this whole simulation of all the things that we think we're dealing with. And I look at like someone like Elon Musk, and I admire The fact that his brain says, hey, let's figure out how to be an interplanetary species. Let's be the first to put EVs really on the road in mass and have it done right. Right now, that dude, I just had my kids invest some money in Tesla because you've got this $860 billion company that if in the next 7 years they put a robot in every home, which is one of the things that they aim to do, think about paying $120 a month and having a robot in your home full time that can cook, clean, drive, errands, run, get stuff. Like, everyone's going to want one. And I'm like, that's going to make Tesla somewhere between a $7 and a $10 trillion company. So I told my kids, I'm like, kids, do we invest in blue stocks? They're like, no, Dad. I was like, why? Because they've already made it. It's like, what if blue chip goes super blue chip? Because instead of setting a separate company that's going to do the robots, they merge with Tesla. And my kids are like, Dad, let's invest in that. Let's make that one of our asymmetric investments. So I'm bringing that up because life is beautiful. It's interesting. It's throwing all these incredible opportunities at us. And every hardship that we really learn from makes us more capable in the next challenge, also allows us to create the greatest value on the planet. So, it's really weird. People say, don't pray for challenge and difficulty, right? Like, that would be stupid. I'm like, I don't know. I think there's something really beautiful about saying, God, you know what I can handle. Give it to me. Dish it up, because I am here to grow, learn, and become more.
Well, Kris, that's how we work out too, because you work out and you stress your muscles to make them bigger. So we're working on life muscle, and we'll be cliche. This is going to sound like a bromance because it is. I mean, we've had many conversations, and this is going to get simple. Is every cliche that we're about to say, I believe, and I know you believe. Listen, hindsight is 20/20. When you think things aren't actually working out for you, they are, and everything is happening for you, not to you. Yeah. You're living proof. I can look back at things that I wish they would have worked out. And now I look back later and like, oh man, that actually did work out. Yeah. That's what you were saying. And I love that. So, I didn't I didn't put any in my show prep about the kids. I was at your house and I see that you homeschool your kids and you have this whole classroom and you have this list up on. Talk about the kids a little bit. What are their ages? I just want to share, just because I know it, but I want to share with the listeners because you really are a big family man, starting with your wife, who is the kindest, lovingest. I just can't get enough of her. I love me some Colin. When she messages, I just light up. So wow. It's not by accident that you guys are together. And you are creating amazing children. So talk about them for a minute. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're doing a total social experiment different than what we were brought up with. Several years ago, this is even before the pandemic, my wife and I turned to each other and I said, is it time? And I said, yeah, it's time. We pulled our kids all out of school. They were, it's one thing to send them off to school for elementary school when they're learning about shapes and colors and numbers. But, once you get into junior high, the game changes, and especially high school. And my wife and I said that, we want to give our kids a custom education. And so that means instead of having them learn from a textbook, take them somewhere in the world. Like, we just got back from Japan, and before we were on a yacht in the Galapagos Islands, learning about all these indigenous, creatures on those islands. And so my wife and I said, we're going to do world school. We're going to bring teachers into our home, and we're going to customize their entire education. So we have an 18-year-old daughter, a 15-year-old son, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 12-year-old son. And my 15-year-old and I, next week, we are embarking and doing the Baja 1000. And so I've got my Can-Am rigged with, air filtration in my helmets. And we're literally, and this isn't like the Baja 1000 race. This is the same trail with like 12 buddies of mine in their rigs and their teenage sons. And we're basically doing the trail, but only really kind of doing maybe a couple 100 miles a day. And my son and I, we're just going to be on this wild adventure, but we're just going to talk all week. We're going to take a relationship to a whole nother level. And I believe that education is more important than, what could be happening in school. And one of the biggest reasons why we pulled our kids from school is because, we were doing a lot of things different in life, and teachers kept saying, don't do that. They'll struggle to catch up. We got to keep them on their curriculum. I said, well, it was actually when I was taking them to Kenya to do a 3-week service mission. And I was arguing with the teacher saying, hey, I'm going to bring cows into this village for these widows where a cow is a business and the milk can pay for all of their kids to go through school. And we're going to do these clean water, and we're going to build this orphanage, and we're going to do all these different projects. And they're just like, no, they're going to miss too much school, Mr. Krohn. And I said, then I don't want my children educated here anymore. So it's been just a custom game ever since then. And it's been amazing because my kids, they're some of them are more entrepreneurial than others. My 12-year-old son, Daniel, he has 4 bees, he has 4 bee houses, and, they cost $600 each, and he makes about $1,200 a year on each one of them. And now, just like multiplying herds, he's multiplying his hives. And by the time he's 18, he'll be making between $50,000 and $80,000 a year. So he can decide if he wants to go to college, or decide if he wants to expand that business, or maybe just do something new, but really teaching him how to be a creation kid who knows how to create value, get paid for it, and then self-determine his own life rather than having society tell him what it's supposed to look like.
I love everything I just heard. I believe that the school curriculum is so behind times, it's not even funny. I was sitting there, my daughter is a freshman, and she was doing geometry. And she looked at me and she's like, "Dad, how good are you at geometry?" I said, "I'm a freaking whiz." And she was doing, what do they call it? Properties. And she's like, "Explain this to me." And I reach over and I look over and I say to her, and I like immediately, I didn't say this out loud, but I looked and I said, "I have not thought of that since ninth." So I did it in 8th grade, since 8th grade.
Yeah.
So I'm 48 years old. I have never needed to know geometric properties in my entire adulthood. Why are we teaching these things?
I told my kids, I said, you're not going to learn calculus. You're not going to learn, certain aspects of chemistry and physics. And we give them a lot of things to round them out. But really what we do is we figure out what they're good at and we lean into it. And we say, hey, where you will succeed the most in life is not by what comes hardest to you, but what comes the most natural. What are your natural gifts? What are the things that you see yourself doing? Let's pour energy. Let's pour gas on that fire.
That's so good. You know what I teach my daughter over and over? Emotional intelligence, over and over. How to deal with people that are unruly, that don't know how to communicate.
Brother, that's one of the most important skills that is missing, and why we have a mental crisis in the world today is because people don't know how to regulate their emotions.
I love you, dude. But those are so secret that I put together 20 questions. Most people had 10. There's 20, and I didn't even scratch the surface of the things that we could talk about. But we're going to make a quick switch. Thank you for the family stuff. I just am in awe of everything that you're doing and winning massively, and just doing, not only winning, just doing good things and making the world a better place. So vulnerability, we've talked a lot about this one, so this is going to be funny. Vulnerability can be a powerful tool for growth, which it really is. And, we've talked about this. Is there a time in your life or career when you felt particularly vulnerable? And what did you learn from the experience?
Kelly, used to be a very inauthentic person. I did not know who I was. I was such a pleaser that I just was obsessed with what everyone else wanted. And I was obsessed with being liked by people. And that meant that when it came time for negative feedback of any kind, that I couldn't handle it. And eventually I had a coach turn me on to this problem. He's like, "Bro, you are a massive liar." And I said, "Excuse me, I'm a liar?" He's like, "Yeah, you're a liar, because what a people pleaser does is, instead of being true to who they are and sharing their thoughts and feelings, they're too busy being a chameleon trying to be liked by someone else, living someone else's life. You're a liar." And it took 6 months for that to sink in. And then it took years of work before I really just said, wow, I finally become a person where I know who I am. I'm living my life. I love me, and I don't care what anyone thinks about me. And what that amounts to is being a pleaser usually is hiding behind some of the more vulnerable issues of life. But an authentic person, they'll be honest with you. So, you could say, "Hey, Kris, how's your daughter doing?" And I'd say, "Well, Kelly, from a year ago when she tried to take her life, and that happening right before my eyes, it's beautiful that my wife and I have been able to see that our family therapy and the other things that we've been done has saved her life. And right now she turned 18 last month, and her prospects in the future are amazing. Like, I feel so much better than I did a year ago than when we were going through that." Well, that's just the honest truth. That's just called vulnerability. That's just me sharing with you where I'm actually at. And most people, they're not vulnerable. Most people aren't willing to tell you the truth. What they do is especially here in America, man, dude, we've got this false yes syndrome where, yeah, "Hey, how you doing?" I could be having a bad day and I'm like, "Great. How about you?" We're just liars. And I think that people pleasership it affects most people in this country. And so learning who you are and learning how to genuinely represent your unique you is something that's kind of missing in the world today. But I get 5-10 million views on my social media every single week. And a lot of the comments are, geez, it's either you have a lot of high energy or how did you share that? Like, that was so vulnerable. And I do believe that vulnerability is a superpower. And if you want to stand out, anyone listening to this, if you want to stand out of the crowd from anybody else, it's really easy. Just embrace the vulnerability. Learn to be honest and represent who you really are. And you'll already be considered more open and honest than most everyone else around you.
Thank you for sharing that. We're going to dig into that. And I'm going to say, I would have never known that about you, because immediately when I first met you, we literally exchanged energy and hugged and just knew that it was on. So it was, you see two big dudes and there's always a dick measuring contest. And now with us, it was like, dude, I love you. I love you. Let's freaking talk. Do we just become best friends? And from that moment, I remember when I looked over and saw you and I was like, I like this dude. I even said a word and I could feel your energy. So hearing that you were a people pleaser, especially when we've had some great, tough, vulnerable conversations about life. And I enjoy it. So I want to go back because you were shared something very vulnerable, and I am a big proponent to talk about anything that has to do with suicide.
Yeah.
So will you share a little bit more about that? Because we don't know who's listening and who this can help. Without getting into the details, but a little bit of what can people glean from this unfortunate? We talked about learning and going through tough situations. So what can people hear? What should parents be looking for? What did you do and how did she do it? Just give us the life lesson out of that.
Yeah. So Kelly, I think like so much of this upcoming generation in particular, have a lot of vulnerabilities around their emotional intelligence. I think that social media has actually had a huge impact on this generation, where some kids, they just play the comparison game until it kills them. Literally, they'll post something, they'll see the way everyone else responds, and if they don't feel liked or loved, then they're nothing, and their life's not worth living. And I think for my baby girl, she found herself in that place where she didn't know how to validate herself from within. And so she needed other people to. And if she didn't get enough external validation, she would just beat herself up. She'd tell herself she was ugly or fat or not good enough, or, the lies that we tell ourselves. And those lies, they vibrate with such intense low energy that sadness becomes depression. Depression, eventually you want to just check out. And she got herself there. She's doing a lot of cutting, just trying to feel. And so my wife and I, at one point when it got really bad, checked her into a facility. And about a week later, she was begging to come out. She's like, I'm changed. I don't ever want to be here again. This is awful. I want to live. And within a month, she was back in the hospital. And my wife and I knew that the day we took her out would quite, literally be her last day on earth. And we didn't trust therapists. We didn't trust conventional methods, because my daughter either needed to be in a home with 24/7 care, or we needed to find something more extreme. I feel very fortunate. It was really a bit of a godsend that someone came into my life and said, hey, I know this psychedelic therapist that does these shamanic, plant medicines. And my wife and I had all sorts of negative stigmatization around those notions, but we were so desperate that we checked her out of the hospital and basically put her in the hands of this woman. She was a trained nurse at the hospital. And she spent the night there. And by noon the next morning, my daughter came into my bedroom after having been driven back by my wife with tears, just saying, Daddy, I want to live. And, that was a very intense therapy. They call that kind of therapy, 80X, like 80 therapy sessions in a night. And, that saved her life. And so, I think for my wife and I, for anyone that's looking for hope out there, I do believe that there are some, beautiful medicines and herbs that God's put on this planet that have powerful therapeutic effects. And I think that it belongs, especially to those that are just, emotionally suffering and don't really know how to come back from that.
Thank you for sharing. And that's why the ketamine and psilocybin has become illegal for PTSD and many modalities for treatment. So, boy, that's a powerful story about that. So I was going to ask you, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, you're good. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to ask you, what did you do? Was it the same type treatment to overcome your people pleasing?
No, mine had been done just years earlier. And I got myself just deep in the personal development space, Tony Robbins, and hanging out with a lot of the greats and the goods. And, just literally was investing in a mindset. And so that mind shift came from, creating awareness to what I was unconscious to, and then consciously creating new habits and patterns, and then reinforcing those until they became new habits. And that's really how I overcame my people pleasing.
So listen to what he said over and over. Awareness and don't be a liar. Don't lie to yourself. These are the things that we need to, because when you see social media and people are doing filters and they only say the good things and things are being censored, that's not real life. That's what he means by lying. So being aware and understanding what your shortcomings are and then addressing them head on and just naming them is therapeutic. We keep that. One of the things that keeps coming up is what we need to teach in school is self-love and self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's what we need to create.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people know what that really means, Kelly. And I think self-care and self-love can be very, very synonymous. My day starts with getting up at 4 a.m. And by the way, I do this by choice, and I've done it for years, decades. I get up early, and the first thing I do is I put an audiobook on and I feed my mind. And what happens during the next 20 minutes is I receive new information and thoughts and insights based on books that I like reading that I wouldn't have otherwise. And so I'm using it. And then, I get on the treadmill at our little private gym, and my wife and we meditate. We do an active meditation on the treadmill together. So we're listening to our intense music and really just having a beautiful divine God connecting to our higher selves and feeding our spirits. And then after we're at the gym, so we're going to lift some weights and we're going to feed our body. And then after that, we're going to take some time for us as a couple. We're going to take time with our kids, and between 4 and 9 a.m. is 5 solid hours. But those 5 hours, they make the man I am. The things we do every day are what form our ultimate destiny. And all of those things that I'm doing, they're a form of self-care. So I'm taking care of my body, taking care of my mind, taking care of my heart, taking care of my marriage, taking care of my kids. All of those things help me feel like, hey, it's 9 a.m. The day's just getting started, but everything that was important is already done.
I miss you, man. I listen to you talk, and I love you. I love everything about you. And people, this is a masterclass. He is spitting knowledge, and I know him intimately, and all of this is very, very true. He's welcomed me into his home with his family. I've seen everything. This is the real deal. We're going to switch gears and get a little bit laid back after going 40 minutes of in-depth things. So let's talk about hobbies. What's something you enjoy doing outside of real estate and finance that brings you joy and relaxation?
There's probably nothing better than travel for me. There's a lot of people that live on this planet with a high need for certainty. And I have a huge need for uncertainty. And so, I have my morning rituals and habits. I've got my 3-day work week. I do these things that light me up and help me feel good. But then I get out of pattern. Yesterday, took the jet to California and just visited the home show. We're doing this remodel on our house and wanted to check out some of the last thises and that's. Tomorrow, we're headed down south in Utah to Zions National Park to hike Angel's Landing with my wife and get away with a couple of friends for the weekend. And so I'm constantly filling my life with the unknown. And I do that because I find that memories for me are created in mass when I'm out of my routine. And so I learned, I live to get out of my routine. I love it so much.
This might be why I enjoy our interactions, because every time I come see you, it's totally out of my routine. Because me, I do the same thing you do. I want to get up, I want to go, I want to get to the gym. That 4 to 8 o'clock time for me is boom, 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 boom. And we just, when I'm at your place, it's like we just chill and ease into it and totally off routine. And that's when we have our huge, massive download discussions of how to influence the world. So thank you for that. Wait, you said something, 3-day work week. What's that?
This week Mondays I work and do my video work. Tuesdays and Thursdays I work from home. And then on an ideal week, that's it. That's kind of like 25, 30 hours is kind of like my jam for maximum creativity. And then it's also balance. It's balance for my kids, for my wife, for my friends, for me. And so, I think we have a culture that really pushes a lot of hours, but one of the reasons why a person should pursue financial independence is so that you can buy back some of your time and create some flexibility. There are people out there that probably love working 60 or 80 hours a week. And I love those people. And there are those that don't want to work, and that's what's right for them. And there are those that work 10 or 20 hours a week. I have no shitting to do on anyone what they should be doing, other than what's your joy quotient. Bring it just right back to the book. Like, what energizes you and fills you with life and excites you. And you should strive to build a world that gives you that level of balance. So for me, it's a 3-day work week.
I think we struggle with being happy enough. And what defines being happy and being for me, it's happiness comes as long as I'm peaceful. So nothing can mess with. So being happy enough is like everybody, like right now, I'm happy enough. I really am. I don't need to add anything else in my life. And people are like, whoa, why? And you know what? When I'm happy enough, it's funny. I create more.
I know. So there's this really weird dichotomy between peace and hypercreation. It is true that when we're not growing, we're dying. And so there is a need for evolution. There's a need for change. And when you'll see people that if they're too much of their life is in the same pattern, they join the zombie apocalypse. They become mediocre, mundane. They're not doing anything exciting or good with their life. And that's because there's not enough growth. I've experienced what it looks like when there's too much growth and not enough smelling the roses. And so I think everyone's got to really kind of sit back and say, well, what's my balance? Like, where am I going to win? What does that look like? And, 4 years ago, I had a best friend of mine die in a tragic paragliding accident. And it caused me to take a hard look at my life and ask, Kris, if you were hit by that proverbial bus tomorrow, what would your regret be? And at that time it was, I'm working too many hours and I don't have enough time with my kids. And so I basically created a blueprint for this stage of my life. I created a new model and I've been living it for the last 4 years. And I love it because it feels like the most balanced version of me.
Does that include your 3-day work week? Does that include, you said videos. So you do those on Mondays. You don't do any. What does a Wednesday and Friday look like for you then?
Yeah, well, Wednesday is generally like for me and my wife, and Friday is for me and my kids. So there's Saturday is for me. No.
What I mean by that is like there's no personal development. This is all, it's family.
You have to be very careful of this device. This device, it can own a person's mind. And so being able to put the cell phone away for large stints for me is actually really important because I used to work, call it 50, 60 hours, but my mind was plugged in another 50. And whether it was I woke up at 4 a.m. and whether I went to bed at 11, my mind was constantly thinking about business. And that's when I was out of balance. And how I broke that pattern is I basically bought a safe, gave it to my wife, had her program it. And I said, I'm going to give you this, bring it back out in 4 hours. And I had to, and it was so hard to break free of this thing because I don't even have a laptop anymore. I don't even use email. My world revolves around text. And I get a couple hundred texts a day and I use that to build all of my businesses and make all of my money, but I got to shut this thing off. And so now I've got a lot more self-discipline and control with it, but it literally, my wife had to pry it out of my dead hands to get it put away.
Besides the family and love that you exude and energy and devastatingly handsome good looks too, by the way, I admire how you control your phone usage. Yeah, your phone usage is phenomenal because I'll text you and you usually get right back to me, but there's times when you don't. And I'm like, I know that you're on one of your phone hiatus and I love it. I'm so happy when you take a minute to get back to me because I know that you're enjoying life. And I got to tell you something else. That's something fierce. It's so weird. You see two successful people. I can't stand texting. And I know that's the only way I can get a hold of you. So you get 200 or 300 texts. We say that might get but that just goes to show you there's more than one way to be successful. And kudos to you.
But then again, I only have a handful of meetings that I do a week. So I'm very anti-meeting. So you know how some people are their world revolves around meetings. They're like, okay, we need to talk about something. Let's set up a 30-minute standing meeting. And I'm like, bro, it was 3 questions. Use text, get the answers, cancel the meeting. You just saved 28 minutes of your life. Right. So everyone does it different. You're right. Everyone has to find their jam. For me, I have certain allergies. I'm allergic to meetings.
I am too. Death by meetings. I can't stand it. You know what I just did? Because it's funny, we're talking about this. I just ordered a Bluetooth keyboard for both of my houses and my office, so then I can put my phone next to it, and I'm going to start texting more. So you'll probably see more crap from me because that's where it seems to get things done. All right.
Yeah.
I can go on forever with you as we're going to go. So I want to still deep dive into some things. As successful as you are, everyone faces moments of self-doubt. What's something you've doubted yourself about, and how did you overcome it?
I want to start by saying that of all the human emotions and choices a person can make, I don't think there's a more dangerous one than doubt. Doubt is very, very scary. I believe that inside us, we have a higher voice and a lower voice, our higher self and a lower self. When we are in fear and anxiety, we're taking advice from our lower self. When we are divinely tapped into our intuition, we're accessing our higher self. And when someone has a chronic condition of self-doubt, what they're doing is they're turning off connection to their higher self. And what they're doing is they're listening to that base self that just constantly contradicts. What if it doesn't work out? And it's the what if voice that just wants to tell you, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if you don't get the call back? And what if you do get the call back? And everything is just doubt, doubt, doubt. Doubt is a cancer. And it is so expensive to eradicate from the mind that you can't afford it. And so when people have doubt, I just say, just pause that moment, close your eyes, connect to your higher self, ask the question, get the answer, and never doubt it ever again. Never doubt it, because doubt, that's too expensive. That's a dream killer.
Wow. I'm going to paraphrase. I think what you just said, instead of leading with your brain, lead with your heart. Is that what I just heard?
That's a good way. I think that's a good way of putting it. Intuition is intuition is this idea that I can connect to me and source, me and God. And there's every question that I have it has an answer available right now. And most people don't know that, Kelly. Most people, what they do is when they have a question they can't answer it, they go to their mind and then they say, I don't know. And those are 3 words that I'm not allowed to ever say, I don't know, because what they do is they feed doubt. And so instead of I don't know, I'll ask, for example, well, who does know? Or is there a part of me that does know? Or where would I go to know? And I'll put my energy on what I want instead of what I don't want. The expression of I don't know is a form of creation. And what you will create with I don't know is what you don't want. So you can't afford it. It's too expensive.
Wow. So would you think, let me think? Because sometimes I want to say, let me think. And this is going to sound weird, but I do this. I mean this I ask God and I leave it. And I sit and the answer comes to me in my sleep or in the morning, or I'm not even kidding you, in a text, or it's unbelievable. So do you do that as well?
I do. I believe that when you take a look at the spirit, the heart, the body, and the mind, like what really makes us up, the spirit is like the driver, right? It's the person that basically says, I'm the one. The heart is direction. The body is the vehicle, and the mind is the GPS. And so I think you have to be really careful to take advice from the proper source. So there's some people that are very much in their head. And Tony Robbins has a phrase I like saying. He says, in your head, you're dead. Because if you only operate from here, your mind only knows what it knows, which means you can only get more of what you've gotten based on only taking advice from what you know. I think that we are the worst people on the planet to take advice from, unless you are trying to repeat an old result. But most humans are trying to evolve and create new results, which means that your brain is nearly useless.
Go back and re-listen to that, folks. In your head, you're dead. I say thoughts are magical lies because that literally what we think we know is wrong. So this is why we get along. That was the best advice right there.
Well, Kelly, and I'll go one step further. Kevin Trudeau, I listened to one of his programs a long time ago, and it was all about this phrase, I know. I know. And the moment you say, I know, you're damned. The moment you say, I know, there's no room for new. And so when you say, I know, you're screwed. And when you say, I don't know, you're screwed. So I'm not allowed to say either of those phrases. We're in the constant acquisition of new language, new knowledge.
The depth of you. I could just sit with you for days, and I cherish our conversations, Kris. I really do. We talked about a bunch of idiosyncrasies and quirks and 3-day work weeks. So what is there a habit or routine that we did not discuss of yours that might surprise people?
The most important habit that I ever created in my life stems from a question. And I've been asking this question for 15 years. And I've asked this question,
out, people.
I've asked this question almost every morning for those 15 years. And I'll get myself in a grounded, quiet, meditative state and ask, Kris, what is the number one limiting belief holding you back? And in the beginning, it was things like I'm not good enough, or I can't do it, or I'm not fast enough, or I don't know how. These are called limiting beliefs. They are self-imposed. We learn them majority-wise from childhood, some of them in adulthood. And these are the ideas that actually produce the fruits and results of your life. When you have the thought, for example, I don't know how, what immediately follows it is a really negative, low vibe energy. And what that does is it robs us motivation, and now we don't have the ability to solve it. And so I ask that question every morning because I follow it up with then the turnaround. Instead of I don't know, or instead of I'm not good enough, or instead of I can't figure it out, or it's too hard, or it's not worth it, I then change it right there in the moment and flip it. Well, what do you want to believe instead, Kris? What do you want to connect with that will unlock you at your highest potential? What will make you limitless? And so if the thought is I'm not smart enough, then the return is there are so many things I'm genius at. And if it's I'm too slow, it's like, I got this. I'm perfect speed. And if it's I'm too young, it's like I'm the perfect age to figure this out. And I turn everything into that collective, beautiful I am phrase. And what this allows me to do is to take the 70,000 thoughts a day that govern my brain and start exerting control over them to say, wait, there's some of these that don't serve. Think about it a little bit like this. If there's 70,000 thoughts a day and there's, 10, 13, 15 words per sentence in your thought, that's 1 million words a day. And imagine that some of those words are high vibrational energy, like love and peace, good, kindness, let's do it. And then we have low vibrational energy like hate, doubt, can't, won't, shouldn't. And at the end of the day, you take your 1 million words and add up your score. It's like, I got a +1 for all the positives. I got a -1 for all the negatives. What's my aggregate? Well, if 500,000 of them were positive and 500,000 were negative, I go nowhere. I get nothing. Most humans have no results that they want because they have too much of a split between the negative and the positive. But if you can figure out how to eradicate the negative and shift towards the positive, in other words, become aware of your thoughts, become aware of what you're thinking, and start judging the hell out of your thoughts because some of them don't belong, then stop thinking the thoughts that aren't serving. Take the negative ones. Here's what I'll tell you, low vibrational energy, it exacerbates problems. High vibrational energy exacerbates solutions. And so if you do some of both, you're screwed. You're going to go nowhere. I can tell you where you're going to be in 20 years. You're going to be nowhere. You will not like the results because they'll look a lot like what you got right now, just exaggerated. But if you can develop the ability to become familiar with the unconscious thoughts of your limiting beliefs and then turn around, flip into something positive and beautiful, it'll change everything because that's what programs your activation particular in the brain that tells you what to perceive. You get access to 20 million bits of information per second. You can only see 200 to 300 of them. What are you seeing? Well, you're only perceiving what you're thinking about. Whatever you think about the most is what you're going to bring about the most. So the practice is to ask the question every day, what's holding me back? And then to turn around and to turn it into something beautiful and shift your perception into what you want instead of what you don't.
So those of you that don't know Kris, he also is a motivational speaker. So, and he doesn't do much of it, but when he does, he picks and chooses.
That was cheap, bro. That was cheap. You just threw me under the bus as a motivational speaker.
Oh, let me say that. You're right. I try to choose my words wisely with you because I'm with you on that. Like I would never call you an influencer. You're a thought leader. You are a leader of the pack. And
thank you, brother.
This is my favorite. This has been my favorite podcast already, and I've interviewed a lot of people, and this is just. It's a masterclass, and I hope everybody rewinds it and shares it. I don't even need to tell people to share this, but I know it's no surprise. I want to reread it. What is the number one limiting belief holding you back?
Yeah.
This is a massively successful multimillionaire.
Yeah.
Has a jet, is building a wing on his house that's bigger than his house with a rock wall, a whole freaking living quarters. And he has limiting beliefs. Would it surprise you, though, that my word for this year, I do it every year, is limitless.
That's perfect. I love it. That matches you.
Of course. They say laughter is the best medicine. What's your go-to joke or funny story that never fails to lighten the mood?
When I meditate every single morning for about 30 minutes, I practice 4 creation emotions. And so this is not a humor thing, but what I'll do is before I get deep into my meditation, I'll spend a few minutes and meditate on everything I'm grateful for, and I'll speak it out loud. And then next, I'm going to shift to joy. And I do that to release serotonin. And I think about everything that brings me joy. And then I shift to oxytocin and think about everything that I love and feel loved by and love. And then lastly, I step into GABA. That's the chemical for creating calm or peace. And so I practice about 10 minutes of visualization on these 4 creation energies, because what it does is it helps me develop the emotional intelligence of me choosing how I feel. Now, my favorite of all 4 of these at times is joy, because my go-to for joy, it's always the same thing. A year and a half ago, when I threw myself off of a 3,000-foot cliff in Brazil to hang glide, it wasn't an adrenaline choice. It was peaceful. I felt like a bird that was soaring. It took 7 minutes to basically get all the way back down to the ocean. And that sets my mood every single time. If I need a mood shift, I just think of soaring, and makes me feel good.
My very favorite dreams are when I fly. I have these dreams when I'm flying, and it's wild. I'm sure you have them too, don't you?
Brother, you're a brick. I don't know what you weigh, but you are freaking nothing but all pure muscle. And I'm like, if I could float and you could fly, that would be amazing.
Hey, if it could happen, you and I would figure out how to do it. Next time we're together, let's try. Yeah, we're going to be up on the roof, and Clint's going to be like, "What are you 2 idiots doing?
Don't do it.
I believe I can
fly. Don't jump."
That was priceless. I want to go with it. Gratitude, joy, love, calm.
Yeah. Gratitude,
joy, love, calm. That's kind of what Dr. Joe teaches in his, but you've put a better spin on it.
I don't know if it's a better spin. It's really, that's what I practice to get myself in a particular zone before I go off the deep end into my meditation and connect with myself and God. And I do think there's so much value in a person understanding that there's a space between stimulus and response where we are not reactors, we're creators, and we are meant to create the life that we want. And so someone comes up to you and they're abrasive and they yell at you. Well, the reaction might be to yell back or to hit them or to be sad or angry or shut down. But that's the unconscious, animalistic, reptilian part of you. Where's the God consciousness instead that says, maybe this person needs a hug, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe I'm going to laugh it off, or maybe it just doesn't matter. You're always at choice. Literally at every second of every day, you are at choice. And so whether you are a happy person or a sad person is just a byproduct of your choices. If you want to change, watch this. That's it. You just snap. Like, it's so easy to just change. Like, this is the only second I'll ever have. So I want to make it the most meaningful second it could possibly be. I had a near-death experience when I was 19. And when I came out of that ocean after trying to save my sister's life, I decided that I didn't know why I was saved or preserved, but I made the decision that every day of my life, I was going to live it like it was my last. And that means that every day I'm in pursuit of something novel, exciting, something that's never been done. And I don't mind taking risks because I want this life to matter.
That's beautiful. That's deep. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Honestly, it would be that breakthrough hack of that question. And it's the ability to, if I were to tell my younger self right now, what I would say is, listen up. You have 10,000 beliefs about yourself that form your identity and your perception of the world. And 2/3 of them are negative and 1/3 positive. You need to go on a mission before you do anything else in your life and find those roughly 6,600 limiting beliefs. And you need to trade them for what you do want instead of letting them be the embodiment of what you don't. And if you can do that, the sooner you do that, the sooner you'll go on to living your most magnificent life possible.
Oh, man, you're just killing me right now. I love it. If you could create one law in the universe, what would it be and why?
We sometimes play the game, if Kris were president of the world.
Yes.
It'd be a terrifying place, right? Like, I have so many rules that aren't for anyone else that just help me live my most amazing, happy life. So I mean, if I could create one universal law that everyone had to abide, I'd probably say that you have to probably give out like 20 hugs a day minimum. And
we've had this discussion. I love it. That's why I asked this.
Yeah, just take the moment to connect with people. I think the most intimate thing that we will ever do with another human being is look in their eyes. And I have a belief that intimacy is for everyone. Some people think intimacy is sexual, but for me, intimacy is about seeing with this soulful empathy a person through their eyes, their world, and connecting with them where they are. And whether I get 5 seconds with you, or I get 5 minutes, or I get 50 years, I won't really actually ever know you until I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to give you the intimacy that is within me. And that, for me, Kelly, leads to lifelong relationships and honestly making a difference. It's simple. I used to spend a lot of my life thinking that to make a difference in someone's life, I had to do something really big. But I find that if I can just pause and give them the most valuable gift, which I have, is my time, and just take a moment to connect and say, hi, I see you. And maybe even tell them what I see. That intimacy is, I think, what the world needs more of. And sometimes that starts with a hug.
In your living room, I learned the definition of intimacy. Into me, I see. Remember that discussion? Were you there during it? Into me, I see.
Yeah.
Wow. My mind was blown. It was so simple. In your living room, and it's ironic you're saying this. Every time I leave and I get on the airplane, I'm flying back, I'm doing downloads of our discussions, and that intimacy word comes up every time. And what does it mean to me? And how do I get to be more intimate? And we're two men, and the intimacy that I do when we hug and connect is phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get you out of here. 2 more questions. If you could have dinner with one person, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I would actually really enjoy a meal with Elon Musk. I think that he has one of the most bizarre point of views on the planet. It's so progressive and it's so different, but it's also very, very insightful. And I think for me, he is kind of like this distant mentor because he's been crazy enough and audacious enough to go after the things that are even beyond what anyone would have considered crazy. And of all the core values that are within me, my number one core value is audacity, faith-filled audacity, which means to have the ability to pursue the things that everyone else would think you're absolutely crazy for pursuing. And I think there's a lot of really good examples of people that do it out there, but I think Musk does that in a really big way. So I think I'd enjoy that.
You know what? I went this whole time, and I'm enjoying this tremendously. You wanted to promote this freewealthgift.com, and I went and looked at it. There's 3 gifts in there. Will you take a couple minutes and talk about that? freewealthgift.com. I got freaking enjoyed my conversation.
I love connecting with people, and I love creating value. And freewealthgift.com is me saying, hey, free tickets on me. Come join me in my own private event center in Utah. And that's a way to connect with me. Grab one of my books for free. Get a wealth consultation from a member of my team. Get a multimillionaire's perspective on what you could do to create wealth acceleration. And then also my brand new book is out there today, Time Machine, and it's available on Amazon. And so you can go to freewealthgift.com for these other gifts. You can pick up a copy of Time Machine on Amazon. And, those are ways for me to connect with you and hopefully create some, deeper meaning for you.
Yeah, those who know me that follow me. Here's the book. It's available on Amazon. I'm going to read it and give him his review like I do for all the books. I just learned about this 2 days ago, so I didn't have enough time to consume it. And with your information, I need enough time to read this. I'm going to read this backwards and forwards, and I'll release a reel about it. And I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. And it's going to take me forever to read it because I know it's deep, and I'm going to read it from our friendship perspective. So guys, go over to freewealthgift.com. Is that what I said? What was it? Freewealthgift.com. There are 3 gifts that he's given away. Follow Kris Krohn. And then we're going to end it with, if you could leave me with one piece of advice, what would it be, my brother?
People that have a near-death experience, they don't take anything for granted. Everything feels like borrowed time. And I find that sometimes the NDE people are the people that live the most fullest. But Eckhart Tolle said that you don't have to have a near-death experience to learn to live that way. You can simply do it by choice. So start every day with the opportunity to really connect with who you really are, step outside your pattern, and then remind yourself that today's a gift. You are a gift. There's only one version of you on this planet. There's only the you that has the skills and abilities and weaknesses that you do. They all make you just perfectly imperfect. And if you live this last day like you're dying, and then maybe today will be the best day of your life.
Gosh, beautiful. What bonus question? How long are you going to live for?
144 years. That's the minimum.
You want to 144. I'm 120. We've had this discussion, so
I know. And I'm not trying to be better than you. I'm just going to live 24 more years than you. No, we're gonna live a long time. Modern medicine is there. Most people don't track the futurists. Right now, your longevity is going to be there. Whether you have the quality of life depends on how you take care of your body. So take care of your body. Your greatest wealth is not what's in your bank account. It's the trophy that you're wearing right now. So treat it like one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kris Krohn, thank you very, very much. I love you. I cannot wait to see you, and I'll see you in very, very soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Kelly.
Please rate and share this podcast. I'm active on all social platforms and love to hear from my Siegel supporters. Each and every episode is sponsored by my company, National Technology Management, the easiest and best IT company to do business with, delivering peace of mind with technology every day, even simplifying cybersecurity. Visit trustntm.com for more info. Until next week, be harder than life.